Thank you very much for inviting me, Anurag ji and Devika ji, for the conference on well-being. I think it's very heartening to see well-being being discussed in such a detailed manner with an all-day conclave completely dedicated to well-being. So I'll just focus on one item, which is stress, anxiety, depression, lack of mental health. And as I look at it, when people say, are you into spirituality? I say we are into health. Why? Because just like the computer has the hard disk and the screen, the body also has the screen and the hard disk. The external body we see is like the screen and the mind is the hard disk. So when we are speaking here about well-being, the WHO defines well-being as the perfect synergy between body, mind and spirit, and that is defined as what good health is all about. So therefore, today 300 million people across the world experience stress, anxiety and depression symptoms. Just like the computer which has a virus in its hard disk collapses and then ultimately crumbles down even though the externals look very great. Similarly, a person may have a very enviable lifestyle, externally appear very successful and happy, but no one really knows what's happening within because the mind is an animal of its own. It is just like the hard disk. And therefore, just like to clean up a computer which has hanged, you need an antivirus software. Like that, to clean up the mind, you need the antivirus software. And therefore, all the different people present here today are, in one way or the other, speaking something about different types of antivirus software which all of you have experimented with and have found which works to different degrees. Because one thing common amongst all the people present here today is you have to bring mind into the equation, because if it was only body, it would be a conference of doctors. We are not a conference of doctors, it's a conference on well-being. And what differentiates the conference of well-being with the conference of doctors is, whether you have expressly stated it or not, there is mind in the equation somewhere here today. Otherwise, we would not be even qualified to be speaking and standing here and speaking, because we are not qualified doctor. At least I am not, and many of you may not be. So therefore, the word well-being comes across as a wonderful vehicle to convey the meaning of how a group of people across the world have understood the importance of adding mental health to the gamut of overall improving the health, not just with the body, but with also the emotions, with the mind, and the various interactions. And therefore, typically, a country like India is highly privileged to lead the entire world in a discourse on this topic, because India is a country which traditionally has been extremely forward-thinking in terms of mental health. I was giving a talk at MIT in Boston. The professor came up to me and said, "Hey, they introduced you as a graduate from IIT Bombay, but we see that you're speaking from the Bhagavad Gita. What's going on? And then you're wearing very strange dress, and your hairstyle is even more strange. So who are you? Are you an engineer? Are you a doctor? What are you?" I said, "I'm a Vedic psychiatrist." And therefore, the point is that today in a country like India, 370 people commit suicide every single day. And at the awards function the other day, I was sharing with everyone my own story of what made that change in my IIT journey to start dedicating myself towards well-being 30 years ago. What happened was, in my last year, one of my colleagues attempted suicide. And he was a very good student, doing extremely well. And it was a shock for the whole community. Why did he try suicide? And then when we asked him, he said, every exam before that, he was getting the gold medal for years together. This was the first time ever he got a silver medal. He could not adjust to the fact that he came second. And he tried to kill himself. And then in the same exam, I had 4 or 5 friends who had failed in 3 to 4 subjects, but they were moving around the whole campus peacefully, blissfully, blessing others as if nothing happened. So that was even more shocking. So I approached my friends and said, अरे तुम लोग तो बड़े बेशर्म हो, 4 सब्जेक्ट में फेल हो गए, आराम से घूम रहे हो, शर्म नहीं आती? And they looked at me and said, अपना philosophy simple है, कॉलेज में घुसना अपना काम है, निकालना कॉलेज का काम है. So why should we take tension? So that was the first time it occurred to me that the modern education system is teaching people how to be successful, but not teaching how to be happy. And what's the difference between success and happiness? Success is to get what you like, and happiness is to like what you get. And it's not easy to like what you get, because the Gita defines our life's paradigm of suffering as suffering is defined in the Bhagavad Gita as to not get what you want and to get what you don't want. And therefore, dear friends, it's very important for us to help generations in our country understand the paradigm which we are born with. And so in a country like India, where healthcare has been given so much of emphasis, you'll be shocked to know that there are only 70,000 hospitals for a country of 140 billion, 1.4 billion, 140 crores. For 140 crore population, we have only 14 lakh doctors, out of which only 7 lakh are allopathic doctors, remaining 7 lakh are Ayurveda and naturopathy doctors. Out of the 7 lakh allopathic doctors, only 1.5 lakh doctors are available for 80 crore rural population. And only 5.5 lakh doctors are available for the remaining 50 to 60 crore urban population. So when we are speaking on a conference on wellness, the first question is, are we speaking about wellness for the whole country or wellness for the urban elite who can afford to buy wellness? So that is something which we need to introspect and ask. Because when we speak about wellness, I see the whole world of 7 billion population divided, or 7.4 or 7.5 or nearly 8 billion population, divided into 2 sections. Only 2 billion in the world today have disposable income, and 6 billion are below poverty line, poverty stricken, totally dependent on government schemes. So when we are speaking about well-being, wellness, which section are we talking about? So for the 6 billion, getting 2 square meals, for them to get basic sanitation, for them to be able to get running water, to be able to get electricity, to be able to get basic needs so that the heating in the house can happen, that is well-being for them. Whereas for the 2 billion who have more than what they can handle, then we are speaking about mental health, depression, stress and anxiety because of not being able to digest the prosperity. So therefore, I am bringing in a different dimension to today's discourse, because sometimes you may just be busy thinking about what the 2 billion are dealing with, because the 2 billion is having continuous conversations with each other, because they are the ones on social media, they are the ones who can actually have conversations around this, because the 6 billion don't even have electricity to charge their phone. So how they will go on social media also, many of them. So therefore, we have to understand that when we speak about well-being, one of the best ways this 2 billion can have well-being is when they look at the state of affairs of the 6 billion and decide that how in my life I can do something on a regular basis so that I am sharing, giving, expressing gratitude to others. And therefore, I would say, begin your well-being journey with share your care. We have been given enough, but the problem is we don't look at that way. We are always having tendency to think, "Arey, mujhe nahi mila." And never is enough is enough. And therefore, one of the biggest challenges we have is the feeling of continuous dissatisfaction with our current circumstances. And therefore, the 2 billion has 3 problems. They go through cancer of the mind. Comparing, complaining, criticizing. 3 cancers of the mind. Because they are never able to see what they have actually received in the present circumstance. When I joined as a sadhu in the ashram, we had somebody who joined. He was a monk. And then he came from a village, and I was in the kitchen serving, and he was also sent to the kitchen, and we were serving together, and he came up to me after a few days and said, "Are, you have engaged me in rolling chapatis in the kitchen. मैं तो ISKCON में आया कथा करने, प्रचार करने, चपाती बनाने नहीं." So I said, "Why you are telling me, Baba, I am also in kitchen, मैं भी चपाती बना रहा हूँ. What is the point you and me discussing?" He said, "No, you should recognize talent, not that you engage me like this." Again, after 3 days, he came and complained. Again, after 1 week, he complained. After 1 month, he brought his luggage and said, "I am going. मैं घर जा रहा हूँ." मैं लोग क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ मैं कथा करने आया, प्रचार करने आया, चपाती बनाने नहीं. So he left. 10 years later, I met him at a program. He came running to me and said, "After I left the temple, I went and got married. After marriage, my wife got back pain. घर पे रोज चपाती मैं ही बनाता हूँ." And he said, शायद उस समय थोड़ा रुक जाता तो अच्छा होता. Because many times we are so impatient, we don't see our current circumstances and what we have. And therefore, when we are speaking about well-being and wellness, we see that the definition of well-being for those who are considered to be urban elite is different from those who are in the other category. And hence, when we are focused on discussing about those who have the resources and the means in this 2 billion, for them it is extremely important to realize that their stress is caused because of a gap between expectation and reality. This gap between expectation and reality causes stress. And therefore, it's very important for us to know that we have limited control over our circumstances, but we have unlimited control over our consciousness. And therefore, the Bhagavad Gita is bringing together this very important principle, which is that no matter how much planning you do, there will always be situations which are beyond your control. But you should know the art of controlling your mind and adjusting your consciousness in such a way that in spite of prosperity or adversity, you are not focused on increasing your prosperity and diminishing your adversity, but focused on engaging in service. That's what is the focus of the Bhagavad Gita. I was going for a program in IIT Kharagpur. I had 2 friends from Los Angeles with me. Our flight landed in Kolkata. When it landed, we were told that there is Bengal Bandh. So when I came out, I was received with garlands. I told my organizers, Bengal Bandh. Our vehicle cannot go towards Kharagpur because 3 hours journey, how we will go? They said, no, program is on, not cancel. I said, Are Bengal Bandh, how we will go? They said, we have come to receive you in ambulance. I said, ambulance? He said, that's out of box thinking. When we were entering ambulance, my 2 friends from America looked at me and said, Are, why are we entering ambulance? I said, बड़ा मुश्किल सवाल है, क्योंकि आपको पहले समझाना होगा बंद क्या होता है. इससे अच्छा बैठ ही जाओ. So they sat behind, I was sitting in front, and somebody stopped us and said, I want to see who's behind. And they looked behind, and my 2 friends, after eating breakfast and with garlands around their neck, were sleeping peacefully. This guy looked inside and said, इनकी आत्मा को शांति मिले. And within 3 hours, we reached our destination. So there will be circumstances and situations we may think, this is beyond my plan. This is beyond what I thought. This is beyond what I imagined. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita has a very unique perspective on well-being. And the Bhagavad Gita says, the cause of all fear. How many of you have heard this word, fear? F-E-A-R, fear. How many of you think it's a very, very important word to deal with in today's time? Fear. So do you know what the Gita says as the root cause of fear? Simple. Change. C-H-A-N-G-E. 31% Christians, 23% Muslims, 16% Hindus, 8.5% Buddhists. All religion and spirituality is only concerned with one subject: how to cope with the pain caused by change, period. And because of not knowing this, people are thoroughly confused कि ये धर्म के लोग करते क्या हैं? अस्पताल पता है वहाँ क्या होता है, रेस्टोरेंट पता है क्या होता है, मॉल पता है क्या होता है, ये मंदिर मस्जिद गुरुद्वारे में क्या होता है समझता ही नहीं. What is it that they are bringing to the table? What we are bringing to the table is not being properly communicated, because of which our medicine and our therapy is being highly misunderstood. But our product is, we have antidote to the fear caused by change. I only have time for an elevator pitch. But highly educated people have studied everything except the simplest things which can make the most profound impact. And that's why 30 years back I decided to go on this path, because I thought that people would be able to study everything, but they may not get access to some of the simplest revelations, but which can really change their lives. And therefore, dear friends, the Gita is saying, if you want to deal in life, you have to know that you cannot stop your body from changing. So the Gita refers to 8 things which are constantly changing, and we are trying to grab it and stop it. And we identify our success with our relationship with these 8 things. My relationship with my body. How is my body? Healthy, this, that, everything. Second, relationship with my wife or husband or family. Third, relationship with kids. Any change with respect to them. Agara with my house. Pashu with my vehicle. Dravina with money. Money increasing, decreasing, growing, this, that. I identify. Bandhushu, social prestige, social respect, acceptance, rejection, perceived rejection. Rajye, control, career. All of these 8 are identities we create. And we try to stop change with respect to these 8. But we can't stop. They are constantly changing, and that is the cause of our constant anxiety. 100 years ago, the changes with respect to each of these 8 was slow. Today, the changes with respect to each of these 8 is rapid and beyond our control to manage. And therefore, beyond these 8, the Gita is revealing one more element, that is the soul. Therefore, Adhyatmik Gyan, spiritual knowledge, basically means to have the knowledge of the Atma, soul, and the relation of the soul with another element which doesn't change, which is the Paramatma, Ishwar. In different traditions, that controller is called by different names. And the relationship of service between the soul and super soul. These are the only 3 things which do not change. And this is common theme in Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever ism you take, all speak same thing. But languages are different. So, Atmajaya Sutagara Pashudravana Bandhushu Rajye Cha Vikale Nityam Virudham Mamatam Jahau. These 8 things constantly change. Body, husband and wife, children, house, vehicles, money, social acceptance and rejection, and our area of influence are constantly changing. As long as you identify with these 8, you will always be in anxiety. How to overcome this and experience deep well-being which doesn't change? Focus on 3 things. Your identity as a soul, as a servant, sevak of Ishwar, of Supreme, and that experience of service. So therefore, when you focus on Ishwar, your existence as Atma, and the relationship of seva, that person who is not affected by prosperity, is not elated by prosperity, not depressed by adversity, but remains focused on seva amidst prosperity and adversity, in Gita is called Sthita Pragya. Because you are discussing well-being. So every industry will have its parameters of success. Right? If you say, if it's a business conference, then what's the revenue? What's the EBITDA? What's this? So that's a parameter for success. So when you're talking about well-being, what's a parameter of success? So Gita is giving us a parameter, Sthita Pragya. One who is not elated by prosperity, not depressed by adversity, but remains focused on his duty to serve. And therefore, I am grateful to Anuragji, Devikaji, and the whole team of Business World and ENBA for organizing this beautiful event of well-being. And I hope and pray that each one of you will be able to take a few drops from what I have just shared to try to have a different perspective on this entire concept of well-being as our ancient Sanatan Dharma and other traditions have been speaking about. Thank you all very much.